Okay, so we're looking at the very first chapter of Further Stats 2 here, which is something called linear regression. Now, actually, linear regression is something you've come across before. This is actually taken from a GCSE exam question. And at GCSE, linear regression was actually trying to draw the line of best fit. We just never used the word or the phrase linear regression. We used the phrase line of best fit that we were drawing here. And basically what we're going to try and do here is we're going to try and come up with a proper, not a proper, but the best equation that we can find for a line of best fit. Rather than just doing it by eye, we're going to try and see if we can come up with the best line of best fit that we could that should fit the data. Now at GCSE, your teachers probably told you to draw a line of best fit by eye. They probably mentioned that you should aim to have roughly the same number of points above and below the line, and maybe they might have said that it should go through X bar, Y bar. If you haven't seen X bar, Y bar before, X bar means the average of X, and Y bar means the average of Y. So they might have mentioned those things. If they didn't teach you wrong. It was just a different way of us thinking about this. But you can see here I've tried to have roughly this many above the line, and I've tried to have similar numbers going below. I didn't actually work out what X bar, Y bar was because that was a bit extra to do just for a GCSE question. But that's kind of some of the ideas that we have for this. And like I've said, in this chapter, we're going to try and come up with the actual equation of this line that we can then use to make predictions with, rather than always having to use a graph to be able to draw these things on. So I'll take you through the least squares linear regression. That's literally just find a line of best fit, a tiny little bit on coding, and then something to do with residuals as well. And then, of course, we always finish up every playlist with some stuff on exam questions. Now, note, some of this content actually appears in AS statistics on correlation and on A2 statistics, just from normal maths. This is not from the statistics A level, but just from the normal maths A level, the statistics content, where you have the correlation and then regression and correlation. Basically, we explore it more deeply here in Further Stats 2. In A2 statistics, you do find the equation of the line, or you don't even find the equation of the line. They sometimes give it to you, but we kind of revisit it and actually see if we can go a little bit deeper in this chapter. So a quick recap from GCSE. Probably weren't expecting to do this as part of your A-levels, but we will do a recap on this still. It says that the explanatory or the independent variable is always placed on the x-axis. So in this case, the number of hours of sunshine should explain what the temperature is. Okay, so the number of hours of sunshine here is the thing that we are saying is independent in the thing that we are sort of studying here. And the response variable, or the dependent variable, is placed on the y-axis. So we think that the temperature, the maximum temperature, will depend on the number of hours of sunshine. That's what we think the relationship will be here. And in this particular one, we were thinking that the science mark would explain what maths mark somebody had got. So we should always put the explanatory or the independent variable on the x-axis and the response and the dependent variable on the y-axis. And sometimes it would be more obvious which one should be which. I suppose in this case, we might have thought that the maths mark would explain the science mark. But in this case, it does seem to make more sense that the amount of sunshine should explain the temperature rather than the temperature explaining the sunshine. But sometimes it will be very, very clear which one is the explanatory and which one is the response. Now we can make reliable predictions for the dependent variable, so in this case the maximum temperature. We can make these reliable predictions from data that is inside the range of the x-axis. So if I had something and I was going to try and make a prediction for, say, I don't know, when there was 13 hours of sunshine, I could make a good prediction using a line of best fit or a regression line to help me to find out the maximum temperature on that particular day. So that's because it's inside the data range. And you've probably seen this before from GCSE and maybe even before that. This is called interpolation. But if you try and make a prediction outside of the given range of the data, this is unreliable. And this could be because, I don't know, let's say we were going to try and make a prediction for 17 hours and we think that it's going to be a really hot day. That might not be something that we know. That might not be true. It might not continue in this linear pattern. It might, after this bit here, it might actually start to level off, or it might start to kind of go up really dramatically. And same for down here, it might actually have a base limit before it goes through this kind of straight line part that we've got here. So the reason why we don't make these predictions is we only know that the section that we have for the data that we're provided with, we only know that that section there is linear. Outside of that, it's unreliable. And this is called extrapolation. By the way, we've got an outlier here, and we'll have some techniques for identifying outliers later on as well to do with residuals. So the regression line, our new phrase for the line of best fit, would be called the regression line of y on x. We always have the response variable for the first part, and then we have on x, which is the explanatory variable. And we would write this as the form y equals a plus bx. Now, when you do it on your calculator, they offer you the option of either doing, I think they do it as ax plus b, or they do y equals a plus bx. We're always going to do a plus bx in this kind of setup. So if you're ever using it on your calculator, do make sure that you're doing it in this particular form. And obviously, b is going to be corresponding to the gradient of the line of best fit, and a is corresponding to the y-intercept that we have, okay? I don't know why they don't do it as y equals ax plus b. This is just the standard way that it is always kind of written with it in this form. So just get used to seeing it in that form. So the least squares regression line, this is actually now going to introduce what we're talking about for how do we come up with this regression line that we have. And it's called the least squares regression line for a reason. Now, there are other types of regression lines. Regression line meaning a line of best fit. But the one that we study is called the least squares regression line. And this is where we try to minimize the sum of the squares of the residuals. So least meaning to minimize, and we're trying to minimize the squares. So we're trying to minimize the sum of the squares of the residuals. Now there's quite a lot of new stuff there to try and break down. So let's try and see if we can understand what this word residual means. Well, here we have got all of these different blue points are corresponding to different data points. Like in GCSE, they correspond to the little crosses that we've got there. And then we've got on here a fitted regression line. We have put a regression line in here. And all of these black dotted lines that we have here, they are representing the residuals. The residual is sometimes, like in English, if we say like, what's the residue? It's the thing that's kind of left behind. So the residual is like kind of what's the difference? What's the difference between the true data point and then where the data point is being predicted on the line of best fit. So you can think of this residual as the size of the error. It's the difference between the data point, the blue bit, and the predicted value from the line of best fit. Now, naturally, these could be positive or negative, because if they are above the line, we would be doing a data point minus something that is smaller than it, so we would be getting something that's positive. But if they're below the line, we could get a negative residual because of the fact that we are taking a smaller value and subtracting something that is bigger from it. And so because we're going to have some of them are positive and some of them are negative, what we're going to do to sort of deal with that issue is we will square them just to make sure that all of these things become positive. And so these little epsilon symbols, this letter that we have here is the Greek letter that is called epsilon. That actually is just going to be used, I'll use that sometimes in here, for the different residuals that we've got. So when I say E with an I next to it, that is just referring to the first residual, the second, the third, the fourth. It's referring to each one of those ones separately. So EI could be referring to E1, epsilon, but I'm going to say E. E1, E2, E3, E4, En. It could be referring to any of them. And this little symbol at the beginning means to add up, find the sum of all of the residuals being squared. So when you write something like this, it just means take the first residual, which is maybe one of these down here, and square it, add it to the next residual squared, to the next residual squared, and keep doing that for all of the residuals until you get to the last one that you have. And so what I want to do for these residuals that we've got here that have been squared, I want to minimize the sum of these residuals. I'm actually just going to say one more thing, by the way, before we go through this explanation. If we just sort of summed up all of the residuals that we had, well, some are positive and some are negative, you'll find later on that if you just sum up all of the residuals, they would end up as just being 0 for the particular model that we have, which is why we do this squaring process as well. So if we want to minimize the sum of these residuals, we want these sort of black dotted lines to get as close as possible to the red line, but we're not just doing it for one point, we're trying to do it for all of the points at the same time. We're going to try and, this process is called finding the regression line. So essentially what we're doing is we're trying to vary the gradient and the y-intercept of this red line so that these residuals overall become as small as possible. In other words, it's as close as possible to the points. Now, the reason that it is called regression line, or the word regression is being used here, as all of the data is regressing, meaning goes back to, that's what the word regress means, towards the mean. So if we're saying that this sort of red line is something to do with like a kind of average, we're trying to regress all of the data back towards this kind of line of best fit that we've got here. Now, this was written, I think this was created by a French mathematician. I actually can't remember who it was. I was looking at this earlier. But that means that's where it kind of came from, this idea of regression. So we'll just get used to that word of regression, meaning like a line of best fit. Now, luckily, we don't have to do too much maths on this. They're actually going to give us all of the formulae. So luckily, there is a formula that does all of this for us. And I just recommend using the formula booklet for this chapter because it's a really good time saver that we have. Now, normally, I'd like to do proofs for things, but seeing as this is the first chapter of Further Stats 2, it's likely that you haven't done some of the stuff that you need for this. So the proof, if you do want to prove why that we have that B is equal to this thing and A is equal to this thing, you can click this link that we have here. It's fully hyperlinked in the PDF, but it does require some year 2 differentiation. It's of course not a compulsory proof, and it is quite challenging. So I just thought it made sense to just use the formula book for this kind of stuff that we've got here. It's quite challenging, but it's definitely something that is doable. So let's just talk through some of these different things that we've got here. Now, because we're trying to find the regression line of y equals a plus bx, naturally, we want to find out what a is equal to, and we want to find out what b is equal to. Well, the formula for a is this, that a is equal to y bar minus bx bar. And remember that y bar and x bar are just the averages for x and y. So the average for x would be the sum of all of the x values divided by how many x values there are. And if we want, we could put that I there, but we don't really need to have it. And y bar is the average of the y values. That's when you add up all of the y values and you divide it by how many there are. And then the next part is we need to figure out what the b coefficient is. And b is this. It's sxy over sxx. So the ones we're going to need to use for this are sxy, which is this part, and we're going to need to use sxx, which is this one that we have at the top here. Now, they've got them with the little i's. You may not need to use it with these i's. It's just showing that it's adding all of them together. So you'll probably use versions that look like this, that sxx is the sum of the x values all squared minus the sum of the x values squared divided by how many there are. And then sum of xy is going to be the sum of xy, that's from this part down here, and that's going to be subtracting the sum of x times by the sum of y divided by n, just this part that we've got. So you'll probably see me using them in this kind of form that we've got here. Notice when we have the sum of x squared and the sum of x all squared, these are slightly different. This is where you take the x values, you square them all, and then you add them together. This one is where you take the x values and you add them all together, and then you square the result of them all being added together. So it's a slightly different kind of process that we have there. Now, all of this is going to feel very, very abstract until we start doing it with an example in this next part. And that's suddenly when it's going to become much, much easier. So that's pretty much the theory that we're going to need for this whole chapter. And it's all from the formula book. So we'll go and look in the next video at applying this with an example.